Welcome back. Well, once again, a third quarter labour force survey revealing shockingly high unemployment figures. 34.9% of people in this country are now officially jobless. Black women are hit hardest. Their unemployment rate is 41.9%. 3.4 million young people between the ages of 15 and 24 out of a total of more than 10 million are not in employment, education or training. Dr. Gillard Isaacs is at the Institute for Economic Justice and Bernstein's at the Centre for Development and Enterprise. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us on The Pulse. Dr. Isaacs, if I may start with you, what's the data telling us about who this hurts most? From the numbers I've just read out, it shows you the inequality, the racialized inequality in our society.
Absolutely, Stephen. What we see here is 2.1 million less jobs than at the start of last year, which is an enormous number for us. In terms of who gets hit, one of the most interesting pieces of information is actually in sectoral information, where we look at which sectors were hardest hit. So what you see is that it is retail, which has the largest absolute fall, which is 309,000 job losses. Now that is indicates the hospitality and tourism sectors, as well as other parts of retail, and that is with these travel bans and the fall in tourism in the festive season only going to get worse. What we see also is in community and social services, 210,000 job losses, which is the sector which includes public employment, and with the reductions in budget cuts, we will see increased job losses there. Lastly, very interestingly, we see a rise in employment in what's just labeled as finance, but actually that's finance and business services, and that's 138,000 jobs increase there. But the largest share there is of that sector is in outsourced workers, labor brokered workers, who are part of business services. And this is speculation because the fine-grained information isn't available yet, but there's likely an increase there in those outsourced workers and in labor brokerage, which indicates a precariousness in the labor market. In both of the first two sectors which I mentioned, it has a disproportionate number of low-income workers, of female workers, and of Black African workers, which, as you note, have been hit hardest.
And Bernstein, there have been so many conversations about this in our society, and yet it seems there's no change in policy. I mean, I haven't seen the Minister of Labour and Employment or Employment and Labour speak about this today. I don't know if you have.
Stephen, I don't want to hear from that minister. I want to hear from the president. This is a national catastrophe. And CDE has been saying this for a very long time. Before COVID, there were 10.3 million and rising numbers of unemployed people. Today, we sit with 12.5 million. If you include expanded unemployment, which the president does now include. And what that means is that you look at our workforce, we have almost as many people who are unemployed as people in jobs. This is appalling. You would think a government would by now have said, this is catastrophic and we need to rethink what we are doing. We're not getting the growth that we need. We're not making changes and trying to implement things faster. We're not making changes to the labor market that would encourage employers to hire more people. And we still have a terrible sort of skill system. So if you look at the facts of this, if you're a young person, age 15 to 34 in South Africa today, you're about 61% unemployed. this is no country for young people. But why is the cabinet and the president not doing something and saying that whatever we're doing doesn't work? It's time for a fundamental rethink.
Dr. Isaacs, do you agree with that? I mean, it seems, and again, you know, I've had this conversation with so many people over the years, with yourself, with Anne, and I mean, yet nothing seems to change. Government doesn't seem to do anything. I realise these are deep-rooted problems, but inaction, doing nothing, is that surely only going to make it worse?
Absolutely, Stephen. I think Anne and I might not agree on certain long-term interventions, but of course the inertia which we see, as you indicate, is completely unsustainable. I would say it's important for us to link the medium term with these short-term rescue measures also. And there's at least 5 easy things which government should be implementing now. The first is in tourism-linked sectors, the reinstatement of a wage support through the TERS schemes to ensure workers stay employed. The second is grants, loans to those hard-hit sectors. The third is in tax relief in those hard-hit sectors. The fourth is ensuring that the government employment stimulus helps to support and buoy the COVID-hit sectors. And fifth is to announce the extension of the emergency SRD grants towards the implementation of a more permanent grant. And those 5 things which we have, all the those tools which we've used prior, which are available now, could, if were implemented immediately, really ameliorate the impact of this 4th wave which we're about to enter.
And, I mean, I know you won't agree with everything that Dr. Isaacs said. I mean, I've watched the two of you debate many times, several times. There must be some of what he says that you agree with, and you must have ideas of your own. I mean, in a way, it's about unshackling the economy. It's about creating space for enterprise.
Absolutely, Stephen. There might be some things I agree with in terms of emergency measures, but the state coffers are bankrupt. They're empty. So you have to bear that in mind. I am much more interested in fundamental change. And we keep hearing talk of reform, but we never see sufficient and urgent action. In January 2020, the president addressed an enormous business meeting, and he said, "I'm never told what changes you want to the labor market." We immediately wrote 2 articles saying these are the carefully calibrated changes that we think would help create much more employment for young people and unskilled people. A few months ago, the head of Business Leadership South Africa echoed those changes. Has the president engaged at all with any of these recommendations? To my knowledge, no. Has he engaged with the recommendations coming out of months and months and months of work by Business for South Africa in 2020 on what could help create many, many more jobs? So yes, maybe there's something we can do again to help people, and I'm not opposed to that. I think there are far too many people in absolutely desperate straits. But the real challenge for South Africa is how do we give vision and hope for a different kind of society and employment for millions and millions and millions of people, and we cannot do that through state subsidies.
And
we have to get growth.
And Bernstein, thank you. Executive Director at the Centre for Development and Enterprise, Dr. Gillard Isaacs. I appreciate the time. Director at the Institute for Economic Justice. Well, not entire agreement, but certainly some comments.